Smoke filled the air, a grim reminder of the night before. The chaos that had erupted left the city in shambles. Broken glass crunched under my shoes as I walked towards what was once my apartment building. Each step felt heavier than the last. The blast had ripped through the structure, leaving behind a skeleton of charred wood and shattered concrete. The devastation was absolute. My apartment, my sanctuary, was gone, reduced to ashes and debris. Everything I had worked for, every memory was now dust. I had taken the risk, publishing the files from the USB drive. I exposed Luminar Corp for what it truly was, a parasite feeding on the city's data, manipulating lives, silencing dissent. Their grip on the city was suffocating. I thought I was a hero, bringing truth to light. Now, staring at the ruins of my life, I wasn't so sure. The cost of my actions weighed heavily on my shoulders. Picking up a charred photograph from the wreckage, a faded image of me and my sister smiling, I felt a pang of guilt. Memories of happier times now seemed tainted by my choices. Had I traded our memory for a truth that only brought pain? The weight of my decision pressed down on me. But somewhere in the inferno, he hoped a flicker of change might ignite. A spark that could lead to a better future. A change worth the price he had paid. A change that could justify the wreckage around him. The hope that his sacrifice wasn't in vain. But as he walked away from the ruins of his past, the only certainty was the bitter taste of regret. The haunting question of whether it was all worth it lingered in his mind. The city felt different, heavier. The air was thick with tension, the streets patrolled by armed guards in black uniforms. Gone were the vibrant murals, replaced by stark warnings and propaganda praising the illusion of order. Luminar's grip had tightened, its tendrils weaving deeper into the fabric of society. Trust was a luxury I could no longer afford. I clung to the shadows, haunted by the faces of those I had inadvertently hurt, the faces of families torn apart by suspicion and fear.
The payphone buzzed, a jarring sound in the silence of the abandoned warehouse. Alex pressed the receiver to his ear, his heart pounding in his chest.
You should not have done that, Alex. They are everywhere. Watching, listening.
Who are you? How do you know my name?
It doesn't matter. What matters is they are coming for you. Meet me at the old clock tower, midnight. Come alone.
As I slipped out of the warehouse, I felt a prickling sensation on the back of my neck. I risked a glance over my shoulder, my heart skipping a beat.
The air inside the clock tower was stale and cold, heavy with the weight of secrets. The moonlight filtering through the broken window cast eerie shadows on the dusty objects, adding to the sense of foreboding. Claire led Alex up a winding staircase, its steps creaking under their combined weight. Each step seemed to echo the gravity of the revelations that awaited them. They reached a small room, dust-covered and forgotten. The air was thick with neglect, and the furniture, shrouded in dust, stood as silent witnesses to the passage of time.
Luminar is just a symptom, Alex. A tool. It's a facade masking the true intentions of those who wield it. There's something else at play here, something far more insidious. Hidden in the shadows, lurking in the dark corners of power.
Alex listened intently, his skepticism battling with a growing sense of dread. The weight of Claire's words pressed heavily on his mind. Claire spoke of a shadow organization pulling the strings from the shadows, using Luminar's technology to further its own agenda. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the fear she felt. An agenda that involved control, manipulation, and the systematic eradication of dissent. The images of protests and riots flashed in Alex's mind, a grim reminder of the stakes.
They are planning a silent coup, Alex. A takeover so subtle, most won't even realize it's happening until it's too late. They will use Luminar's control over the city's infrastructure to seize power. Every bridge, every road, every power line will be under their command. Communications, transportation, even the power grid, it will all be under their control. The city will become a puppet with its strings pulled by unseen hands.
Alex felt a chill run down his spine. The enormity of the conspiracy was overwhelming, and the sense of impending doom was palpable. He had unleashed a monster, and now it was threatening to devour everything he held dear. The weight of his actions bore down on him, crushing his spirit. He had to act, but every instinct screamed at him to run, to disappear into the anonymity of the crowd. The fear of failure gnawed at him, paralyzing his resolve. He was in over his head, a pawn in a game he didn't understand. The pieces were moving, and he was unsure of his next move, trapped in a web of deceit and danger. The weight of Claire's revelations pressed down on Alex, threatening to suffocate him. The enormity of the situation was almost too much to bear, and he felt the crushing pressure of the truth that had been unveiled.
What can I do? How can I possibly make a difference in this tangled web of deceit and danger?
I have a contact, someone within the organization who is sympathetic to our cause. They understand the stakes and are willing to take the risk to help us. They can help us expose them, but we need proof. Without solid evidence, our efforts will be in vain, and the truth will remain buried. This is a data drive. It contains classified information, proof of their plans. It's the key to unraveling their entire operation. We need to get it to my contact. They can make sure it sees the light of day. But we must be careful. One wrong move and everything could fall apart.
Alex stared at the device in his hand, his mind racing. The weight of responsibility was almost paralyzing, but he knew this was his moment. This was it. His chance to strike back, to atone for the chaos he had unleashed. He had to make a choice, and it had to be the right one.
How can I be sure this isn't another one of their games? How do I know this isn't just another trap? How do I know I can trust you? What if this is all part of their plan to manipulate me further?
You don't. You have to decide, Alex. Trust your instincts. What does your heart tell you? Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith.
Claire met his gaze, her eyes filled with a mixture of determination and fear. She knew the risks, but she also knew the importance of their mission.
He had to act, but every instinct screamed at him to run, to disappear into the anonymity of the crowd. The fear of the unknown was almost overwhelming. He was in over his head, a pawn in a game he didn't understand. The stakes were higher than he had ever imagined, and the consequences of failure were dire. He had to act, but every instinct screamed at him to run, to disappear into the anonymity of the crowd. Yet deep down he knew he couldn't turn back now. The truth had to come out no matter the cost.
The clock tower seemed to close in on Alex, the silence broken only by the ticking of the ancient clock, each tick a stark reminder of the dwindling time. He was at a crossroads, forced to make a choice that could have far-reaching consequences.
All right, I'm in. What's the plan?
Thank you, Alex. We need to get this drive to my contact. They're meeting us at the old docks at dawn. It's our only chance.
Alex nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He had made his choice. He had drawn a line in the sand and there was no turning back. He would fight even if it meant sacrificing everything.
He had tasted the bitter fruit of inaction, witnessed firsthand the devastation it wrought. He wouldn't stand idly by while they tightened their grip on the city, on the world. The journey to the docks was a blur of adrenaline and paranoia. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every passing car a potential enemy.
Alex and Claire moved like phantoms through the deserted streets, their footsteps echoing in the pre-dawn silence.
Alex couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, hunted. He knew the risks. He knew that by helping Claire, he was painting a target on his back, making himself a liability. But he had made his choice, and he would see it through to the end.
As they neared the docks, the air grew heavy with the smell of salt and decay. The dilapidated piers stretched out before them, shrouded in a thick fog that rolled in from the sea. The rising sun cast an eerie, ethereal glow over the scene, painting the fog in hues of orange and purple. Minutes stretched into an eternity as they waited in the oppressive silence of the warehouse. The rising sun cast long, eerie shadows across the dilapidated structure, amplifying the sense of unease that gnawed at Alex's gut. Where was Claire's contact? Doubt, like a venomous serpent, began to coil in his mind. He stole a glance at Claire. Her face was pale, her brow furrowed in concern. She, too, seemed to sense that something was amiss. Her gaze darted nervously around the warehouse, her hand clutching tightly at the strap of her bag.
He should be here by now. Something's not right.
The creak of a floorboard shattered the silence, sending a jolt of adrenaline through Alex. He spun around, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. The man's gaze bored into Alex, filled with a mixture of amusement and disdain. He recognized the type. Someone who thrived on power, who enjoyed the feeling of control it gave them. Someone who wouldn't hesitate to eliminate anyone who stood in their way.
You shouldn't be here,
the man said, his voice low and menacing. He took a step closer, and Alex felt a surge of adrenaline course through his veins. He tightened his grip on the pistol concealed beneath his jacket, his finger hovering over the trigger. Claire stepped forward, positioning herself between Alex and the man.
We had a deal. You said you'd help us.
The man chuckled, a humorless sound that echoed through the cavernous warehouse. The air crackled with tension, the silence punctuated by the rhythmic lapping of waves against the nearby piers. Alex felt a coldness spread through his chest, a chilling premonition of what was to come. He had walked into a trap, a carefully orchestrated betrayal. Claire's face contorted in a mixture of anger and despair.
You lied to me. You promised...
The man cut her off, his gaze never leaving Alex.
Promises are meaningless. The only thing that matters is power.
He raised his hand, and two figures emerged from the shadows, their faces obscured by balaclavas, their hands resting on the weapons holstered at their sides. Alex felt a surge of adrenaline, a primal instinct to fight for survival, but he knew the odds were stacked against him.
Don't do this. It doesn't have to end this way.